Cameroonians, they are sending all their soldiers to occupy the nation. They are sending all their soldiers, they are raping our women. They are loading all the prisons with Amazonian people. United Nations, are you really truly watching how they massacre our people? They are burning our houses, they are burning our people. We have become like slaves in our own sweet home. Amazonian people, this is our moment. Amazonian people, we need to stand up for our freedom. Our people are dying. No more torture. Our children are dying. Amazonian people, this is our moment. Amazonian people, we need to stand up for our freedom. Southern Cameroonians, we need to stand up and fight for our freedom. We are truly moving forward, we will never, never look back. Southern Cameroonians, we need to stand up and fight for our freedom. We are truly moving forward, never, never look back. African Union is so silent. You're watching all the beatings and the killings of the Southern Cameroonians. It's been a long, long time. We have been marginalized. American government.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very special broadcast. I am sorry I couldn't keep up with the time, but I am here anyways, and I hope that you will go ahead and hit your share button and let those who do not know that I am here to join the broadcast. I come to you with a very, very special presentation, and I want to welcome those of you who are joining on ABC on Ground Zero, joining live on ABC on Ground Zero. It's a pleasure to come into your homes tonight to address you on very important matters concerning our revolution. So please, for those of you on this Facebook platform, if you can go ahead and hit that share button and let the numbers rise as soon as possible so I can come with a presentation, I will be most grateful. So please go ahead and you do that. This is going to be a little long presentation. I'm not going to wait for 1,000 people to start with the presentation. I will come to you once I am done or exhausted with the other announcements that I have to make. This is the form in which this broadcast is going to take today. One, I will do a few announcements, and then I will bring you the presentation proper, and then I am going to ask for an appeal for support for ABC. And after I do that, that will be it for the day. Sometime during the week, I guess this is possibly on Friday, I shall come back here to take time to answer any question, take questions from you. I believe the acting president shall also be doing some interviews, and those interviews shall be coming up later in the week or early next week. Those arrangements have been made. So please, as you join, you go ahead and you hit that share button. Go ahead and hit that share button. In a few minutes, I will start with the presentation. I know that lots of people were waiting for 8 p.m., but it took a little longer for me to come over here. We have technical issues that have to be taken care of for a broadcast like this to take place, and that is why sometimes it takes a little longer to come live, and other preparations too. But thank you. I see the numbers rising very, very, very rapidly. Now, while you populate the platform, I want to make this announcement, especially if you are on ground zero. And this announcement goes most especially to our restoration forces on ground zero. You have been hearing of announcements or information by French Cameroon to decimate, destroy, kill everyone they find on ground zero, especially the restoration forces. You have also heard of rumors about some negotiations or dialogue currently going on. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Ambazonians, especially again, most especially our restoration fighters, listen to me, and listen to me really, really good. La République du Cameroon is not ready and not willing for any form of dialogue or negotiations. If indeed you listen to or read a communique that they sent out yesterday, La République du Cameroon says dialogue has long begun. La République du Cameroon is not ready or willing and prepared for any form of dialogue. What La République du Cameroon is preparing for, and which we are beginning to see, is genocide, killings upon killings. We saw it in Bali, we saw it in other places, I think in Esu too, we've seen it in Bambili. This is what La République du Cameroon is going to do in the days ahead. La République du Cameroon will begin to use bombs. They will begin to use bombs to try to destroy our restoration forces. Every restoration group on the ground, ladies and gentlemen, take note of this announcement I bring to you. La République du Cameroon knows if they go to the dialogue table, they have no hope of coming out with one and indivisible Cameroon. And so their goal, their plan, the current plan right now is to decimate, destroy every restoration force and everything that puts on pants on ground zero. And so we are passing out this warning to everyone on ground zero and the restoration forces especially. Take care, watch out for your surroundings, watch out the people you are talking to, because they may turn around to be the same people that betray you and get you destroyed. French Cameroon has a plot right now as I speak to decimate, so they can turn around and say to the international community, they have nobody to contain with. They have nobody to fight with. They have destroyed the secessionists. They have destroyed the Ambazonians. So please, they say to be forewarned is to be forearmed. So please, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Ambazonians, those of you on ground zero, be very, very, very watchful. Again, be very, very, very watchful. This is what La République du Cameroon is bringing your way in the days ahead. Killings upon killings. And so long as the international community does not intervene militarily, La République du Cameroon will continue to do this. They will continue to do this in the hope that they stop us and they stop our restoration forces before ever any form of dialogue takes place. So please, if you are watching, listening to me, take out this announcement that in the coming days, what we saw in Bali, what we saw in Esu, what we saw in Pinyin, what we have seen in Bambili is going to repeat itself county from county to county. The BLM should take notes with the Red Dragons. Bafut should take notes with the Seven Kata. Of course, we have seen Bali. We have seen Bambili. It is going to continue. Ndop should also take particular note. Ndop should take particular note. Everywhere there is a restoration force on the ground, we want you to know La République du Cameroon has plans to come after you, and you must be very, very watchful whom you are talking to from your various locations. I hope you get this announcement. All right. Let me see who is joining. For the while, I have not been able to send greetings. I see Mercy in Joe. Thank you for joining. Us, always here as usual. 8 million Ambazonians will resist La République du Cameroon till freedom comes. You are perfectly, absolutely correct, us. Ekombe Mbonji, I see you. And you can be nicer, please. This is a very civil platform. You know that nothing you say here negative details what I come here to say. I will still pass that message in spite of any form of negativity. I will say it. That's why, thank you for joining. Prosperity J, always here. Jane AMBA, I see you. DM Wheeler, thanks for joining. Mike, thank you. Denson, I see you, sir. Paul Shema4, thank you for joining. Mumbe Ndanga, always one of those here. APA Brian Zale, thank you for joining. Joe Brown, I see you. Ambazonian Stephen, thank you. Yvonne Moore, Nzale Clovis, Fosong Wilma, Ochiba Achundo Nelson, Arch Succeed, Grace so gracious. Thank you all for joining this broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm waiting for the numbers to increase a little bit. I am not waiting for 1,000 people to start this broadcast. In the next 2 minutes, I guess, I should come to you with a presentation proper. Nkong Safa, Sampak Fru Sampak says right on. Thank you, sir. Ekumbe Mbonji, I think I mentioned you before. Grace Azano, I see you. Mike from Baron, I see you, sir. Hero Roberto, thanks for joining, sir. Fisher and King, one of those who's always here. Say, I love you. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Afu, thank you for being here. Takan David, God bless you, sir. Mufu Baron, thank you. Liz, yeah. Thank you for joining. Walter Che, I see you, sir. Oben Moses Obi, thank you for joining. The moment we hit 600 on this screen, on this platform, I will come to you straight away with the presentation. So please hit your button. We have less than 100 people to get there. Aunja Eric Kengason, thank you. Evad Billy Blank, Frankie Nazi, Rana, I missed that. Rana Tan Princess, I think so. Esele, thank you. APA Brian, I see also. Yvonne Moore, I think I mentioned you before. Takuleke Alem Hillary, thank you, sir. Ambazonia AMBA, Matthew Awenong, Blaze, sir. I see all of you. I see all of you. Alejandro Ladesma, thank you. MK Coy, I see you. I see also. And thank you also for all the love that I see here, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot wait any further or hold you back any further. I will come to you with the presentation. And so, ladies and gentlemen, why I do so, I'd like you to go ahead and you continue to hit the share button, because this is a very, very important broadcast that I bring to you today. So please, as I take you to ground zero right now live, ladies and gentlemen, on the social media, continue to hit your share button. Continue to hit your share button, fellow Ambazonians. The interim government of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia is sad to announce the death in Washington, D.C. of Honorable Justice Frederick Alowode Ebong. Justice Ebong, until his death, was an advisor to the interim government of the Federal Republic. The interim government sends its deepest condolences to the family of a fallen statesman and hero. Justice Ebong was a distinguished torchbearer of a revolution and a strong symbol of unity in this struggle. He was a visionary leader and a courageous crusader for the total independence of our fatherland and the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. A memorable moment in the eventful life of this torchbearer of a revolution was when he led a siege on Radio Boya and proclaimed the independence of the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. From that platform, he proclaimed our irrevocable resolve to be free and independent. That was a strong message to our people and the world that nothing would stand on our way towards exercising sovereignty over our country, the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. The fear of the barbarity and brutality of French Cameroon did not intimidate or cow Justice Ebong from standing up for us and posterity in that occasion. He did not submit to the fear and the arrogance of colonial rule. He confronted the enemy on his own terms, just as our valiant and brave restoration forces are doing so on ground zero today. He knew that our cause is a just cause and that it was worth dying for, rather than living as slaves and subhumans in our own fatherland, the southern Cameroons. In that occasion, he proclaimed, and I quote, "No to the annexation and colonial rule," in quote. We must replicate at all times that proclamation in our lives, our families, our homes, and wherever we may be on the face of the planet. He must support our no to annexation, no to colonial rule, and no to genocide operations with renewed vigor now. We must do that. this interim government, in honor of this great patriot, again takes this opportunity today to recommit our effort to support ground zero action and our continuing diplomatic efforts to obtain the victory which he lived and fought for. Justice Ebong was aware and prepared to pay the ultimate price for doing the right thing for the sake of our liberation, our freedom, and our independence. By that proclamation, he sent a strong message to our people and to the world that the total independence of Ambazonia was non-negotiable. This remains our unshakable commitment. We, therefore, call on all southern Cameroons, Ambazonians, at home or in the diaspora to redouble our efforts to ensure that the torch of freedom that our departed leader and patriot, Justice Ebong lead, is not extinguished with his passing away. He has passed this torch to us today. We must prepare to defend it and pass it to posterity. He suffered egregious indignities, violations, and deprivations in the hands of the enemy when he was abducted and kept incommunicado in the underground torture chambers of French Cameroon's gendarmerie in Yaoundé for close to 1 year. He survived that ordeal to continue the struggle for the liberation of our country. It is regrettable today that Justice Ebong has been called to the Lord at a very critical moment in this revolution. He has left conscious of the challenges the revolution is facing, but confident that with this interim government and the Ambazonians at home and in the diaspora, that we will soon arrive, Boya, to celebrate the total freedom of our country, the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. As we pray for the repose of the soul of Justice Ebong today and those of all Ambazonian patriots who have sacrificed their lives for our freedom, let every one of us make a commitment, a recommitment to keep the torch of freedom and liberty burning. May his soul rest in perfect peace. Fellow Ambazonians. Moving now to a more crucial matter. The revolution finds itself at a crossroads sandwiched between remarkable good news, especially of our diplomatic exploits, and the bad news, not only from our common enemy, French Cameroon, but from our own very leader in jail. However, the good news springing out of the bad news is that the latter can only delay or hold us back. It cannot stop us nor conquer our collective resolve in the tenacity of this interim government to deliver Boya as the ultimate trophy for this present pain we face. Let me assure you, fellow Ambazonians, that this interim government, which going forward shall be led by Dr. Samuel Ekomesako as president, and Dr. Harrison Abongwa as vice president, shall not be perturbed, shall not relent or hold back, or be discouraged by the many underlings who try to hijack leadership and usurp authority to puncture or derail the progress this interim government has made and continue to make. Let me equally assure you that this interim government is in a new era, and all of its institutions are united more than ever before. from the local government leaders to county leaders, and to country and regional coordinators, and above all, the Restoration Council. Everyone in these institutions that make up the interim government speaks the language of unison. Unison has been strengthened thanks to the rather unfortunate actions coming from behind bars by our former president, SISIKU Julius Ayuktabe, and a few collaborators. Fellow Ambazonians, last week I came to you explaining some of the reasons behind the actions of our former leader in jail. I stated categorically that majority, if not all of his actions, are founded on the lack of communication between him and the interim government or the acting president who has sat in for him for the duration he has been held behind bars. SISIKU, in about an hour of conversation with yours truly, and subsequently in a meeting with activists, argued and maintained that he had to act because the acting president plots to overthrow him. The evidence he said is based upon the fact that the acting president has replaced almost all of his cabinet appointees. SISIKU, for example, asked pointedly, and I quote, "What is going to happen to my other members of cabinet who are in detention?" End of quote. At the same time, he complained that the new cabinet is too big, too large for a government that is operating in the interim. I believe I did justice in my last outing, explaining to you why most of his cabinet appointees were let go by acting President Dr. Sako. I wouldn't want to go back to that bothering you. But it is very important I give you answers about concerns related to his cabinet in prison and his concerns about the current size of the interim government. These are important reflections because all that SISIKU has done, he has done it for these excuses. You will recall that when SISIKU and others were abducted, this interim government went about with a caretaker government led by 3 persons, headed by Barrister Bobga Harmony, for quite some time before it became necessary to elect an acting president. The idea of a caretaker government was conceived and practiced for a while because at the time all of us thought Nigerian authorities would free SISIKU and others in a matter of weeks. Nobody in the cabinet ever imagined Nigeria transferring them to La Republique du Cameroon's custody. When it happened, and it became obvious that SISIKU and team were not going to be back anytime soon, it became necessary to have a more permanent arrangement that keeps the interim government stable and functioning steadily. The caretaker team was thus put to rest, elections conducted, to which acting President Dr. Sako emerged winner. There was heated debate at that time as to what title the newly elected acting president should assume. Cabinet argued that if the acting president was made to replace SISIKU as president, the world will say, "We have thrown our leader under the bus." We agreed that SISIKU remain the president and the face of the struggle. That was also for the strategic reason of furthering needed international pressure on the regime in French Cameroon. For this reason, Dr. SISIKU was given the title of acting president. However, with all the powers of the president, until that time the president was free and available to take over authority. Based on the fact that the acting president was acting with full powers of the president, he also had full constitutional authority to effect any changes he deemed necessary for the smooth functioning of the interim government and of course the revolution. Among that constitutional authority was the power to make or appoint his own cabinet members as deemed necessary. Something that the acting president has done twice since he took over. It must be he replaced those, the acting president replaced those who were either fraud or derelicted from duty, including the DOD. But SISIKU has said that dismissing his cabinet was a ploy to get rid of him. SISIKU holds that almost every change that Dr. SISIKU has effected in cabinet is to eradicate him and anything about him and to consolidate himself in power. However, if SISIKU was listening enough and listening to the right people, he would not have believed such lies as he has believed, nor taken the actions he has recently taken. I note here that on one occasion, the activists tried weighing into the differences between SISIKU and the acting president, trying to resolve the impasse. At that meeting, where both SISIKU and Dr. SISIKU were present, I was the one who vowed to SISIKU that anyone, and I meant anyone who tries to withhold power from SISIKU the day he is released would have me to contend with. I added that the argument of his cabinet replacement being a ploy to oust him should not hold water, because SISIKU shall not have to be under any obligation to keep Dr. SISIKU's cabinet that he meets. That SISIKU shall have the powers to replace everyone he meets in SISIKU's cabinet and appoint his own. That it was important for Dr. SISIKU to appoint his own cabinet because he is the custodian of the baby, the revolution. If the revolution makes gains, SISIKU takes the credit. But if it weakens or fails, he takes the blame also. And so the need for him to appoint people he can best work with. The activists that were in that meeting can attest to this. That statement was meant to be the reassurance that SISIKU needed to make him hold back or withdraw the actions he was already about taking, and to remind him that the idea that somebody was conspiring to confiscate his authority was a lie. The assurance was meant to persuade SISIKU from indulging into further damage, as he had already issued a statement that purportedly dissolved the cabinet. But SISIKU didn't listen. It meant very little to him. He chose the destructive path. But maybe you are asking, what about SISIKU's point that the cabinet is too large, too big? That too was also carefully explained to SISIKU. Ladies and gentlemen, cabinet is not made up of 74 people as SISIKU and his devotees would want everyone to believe. In fact, if you take a very critical appraisal of the size of this current government, you end up realizing that it is indeed smaller than the government that SISIKU first formed or put in place. You had so many redundant ambassadors all over the place that SISIKU appointed. Ambassador for Nigeria, ambassador for South Africa, ambassador for the UK, ambassador for China, etc., etc. As many as they were, not a single diplomatic gain did they make. Some of them will not even show up for mere rallies to stand with other Ambazonians to protest French Cameroon brutality in their own communities. When it became evident that they were not doing or achieving anything, the acting president scrapped the positions, preferring rather that country heads in those communities that need diplomatic work appoint or elect persons within their communities to play that diplomatic role. So, you put together all of SISIKU's ambassadors to the rest of his cabinet appointees, you end up realizing that he had a bigger cabinet than the present cabinet, ladies and gentlemen. But that is neither to fault him nor Dr. SISIKU. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you this question. Are 74 people too many to serve 8 million orders? Even if we had a cabinet of 200 people, and take note, we're not talking about full cabinet positions here. Full cabinet positions in this interim government are not more than 10. The rest are either undersecretaries or some directors of this or that. If we had, say, 200 of them, is it still too much? Too much to save 8 million people? Who among the 74 people earns a salary? Nobody. Which among the many offices rents or pay an office space? Nobody. How much additional funds does the interim government spend to maintain the 74-member government? Nothing. Everyone past and present working for this interim government has done so as a volunteer. Ladies and gentlemen, you now realize that the bait and sword idea that this cabinet is too big is just one of those ploys to give a dog a bad name in order to hang it. But that is the lie SISIKU believed. SISIKU, so fixated on not listening to these explanations, didn't only purport to dissolve cabinet, but on the day that our struggle got to be listened to at the United Nations Security Council, on the day Ambazonians took to the United Nations Plaza in New York, and under the rain to protest the injustices against us, defiling all common sense and advice from the activists, SISIKU went ahead and announced his cabinet and also appointed a so-called vice president. He has also gone ahead to appoint what he describes as a new restoration council. And he does all of this from behind bars in prison. If all of this doesn't qualify for dictatorship and a breach of trust that warrants outright impeachment, then I don't know what exactly it is. We are reminded, ladies and gentlemen, that SISIKU's was a constituent assembly appointment. He didn't pick or choose to become our president. A constituent assembly picked him and made him president. That constituent assembly consisted of the nationalist groups and the country and regional coordinators. In Zaria, an act of the Constituent Assembly equally created the Judiciary Council and the Restoration Council to create checks and balances between the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. An interim constitution was equally drafted, sanctioned, and approved by SISIKU before his abduction. All these institutions created to guide and check executive overreach, SISIKU has now questioned their legality, forgetting that they were all his making. But let's forget for a moment being in prison. Assuming SISIKU was a free man, like every one of us out here, does he even have any powers to unilaterally create and appoint a cabinet and a restoration council? From where does he derive such powers to do so? We note that he appointed his cabinet before creating this his so-called restoration council. In regular situation, his cabinet would have to be vetted by the restoration council. So who vetted SISIKU's cabinet? And exactly who does his restoration council represent? Can he just sit in prison and pick a pen and choose who serves or speak for Ambazonia? Isn't SISIKU assuming the rule of a king or an emperor? SISIKU sits in jail, appoints a cabinet, injects himself as a supreme leader, appoints a restoration council, picks and sends delegates to represent him or us in Switzerland and in Belgium, and write letters to the United Nations without consulting any other person in the struggle, all this from jail. If he is not stopped now, we will wake up one of these mornings to only hear that SISIKU has finished negotiating for all of us without consulting with us. This is the danger in the powers SISIKU is being allowed to assume behind bars. It is time to save the revolution from SISIKU. He no longer acts for the interests of the revolution. And now it is the duty of every Ambazonian to join forces to snatch this revolution from an impostor. How can the chain lead the free? How can someone languishing behind bars, people who have no freedom, want to rule or control those who have freedom? Ladies and gentlemen, this plot has been long in the making. According to our intelligence, we now are 200% sure that SISIKU is selling us out. Let me explain to you. Wisdom dictates that when you have been away for such a long period that SISIKU has been, what you want to do once you have access to what you left behind is to be debriefed. SISIKU, once he had access to cabinet, and the acting president has never been appropriately debriefed as to what transpired in his absence in the government that he left behind. You will recall that a series of meetings that were later barred by the Restoration Council took place between some members of cabinet or government and SISIKU behind bars. Do not think that SISIKU was debriefed during those meetings. He was not. No, he wasn't. Those meetings were essentially about two things: the APNC conference and ABC and SCBC TV. The main discussions in those meetings were attempts to force a union between the APNC and the AASC conferences, ABC TV and SCBC. When the question came up as to why SISIKU wasn't interested in knowing the state of the revolution, that is, ladies and gentlemen, that is about his abduction, his response was, and I quote, "I know the authentic story of everything that has passed." SISIKU wanted all of us, SISIKU wanted at all costs, by all means, to force the APNC on the interim government. He told Ambazonians overwhelmingly, even when all Ambazonians were overwhelmingly against it and against joining ABC with SCBC, he would not ask how ABC came into being, how ABC was created in his absence. All he wanted to see was ABC handed over to SCBC. When Cabinet and APNC organizers got to a stalemate over merging the two conferences, it became very, very evident that SISIKU was about scheming to start commanding from J. A vote was hastily called upon to vote for the APNC conference to hold. When a question was raised as to what will become of Cabinet's position not to join or endorse the APNC, SISIKU responded that 5 arms of government were represented in that meeting, that, as such, any decision taken from there was final. When asked whether he shall thus be ruling from behind bars, he responded in the affirmative, before adding that even Nelson Mandela ruled from jail. Of course, the idea that 5 arms of government were represented in those meetings was a manipulation and, of course, false. Present in the meetings were a few from the Restoration Council, the ASC, Cabinet, country heads, and 4 of them in jail. There is no way these 5 can stand for 5 branches of the government. There are only 3 branches of the government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. That's exactly what our interim constitution states. In fact, only 2 branches of government going by these were represented in those meetings. Those of them in jail still remain members of the executive or part of the executive, not a separate branch of government. The ASC has never been a branch of government, but SISIKU was making it to be one for his own selfish design. The country heads under the Constitution are under or part of the executive branch of government. They act as administrators, not legislators. But SISIKU again was about fraudulently imposing them on us as another branch of government. The only branches properly represented in those meetings behind bars were therefore the Restoration Council and the executive. Ladies and gentlemen, this chronicle is very, very important because it was after this plot failed, that SISIKU, that attacks were launched on SACO and given labels and meetings, that he registered meetings and abruptly brought an end to the, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, it was when these meetings or plots behind bars failed that labels were put or placed upon Dr. Sako in order to discredit him, so that the people would buy it, get angry, and then push him out and get SISIKU's lackey or scooper into the position. SISIKU and the APNC clique has since the failure capitalized on the absence of an audit report to label the acting president as a fraud. They capitalized on my trip to Boya accounting issues to say the acting president embezzled the money. But come to think about it all, the very people who mismanaged the funds and were about covering up have been the ones feeding SISIKU with lies. They prompt SISIKU and scoopers with some financial records, but will refuse to furnish cabinet with same records. The records presented to SISIKU would paint the acting president as an embezzler and a fraudster, just to give more reasons why people should be upset with the acting president and for the acting president to be replaced so that they can maintain their positions and continue the fraud and the cover-ups. SISIKU would say the acting president is sitting on the audit and doesn't want his cover to be blown. He said this to me too. Ladies and gentlemen, without going into the politics of the audit report, I want to assure you that only one person that I know is sitting on the audit, and that person is the one who managed money and kept the records. The one who was supposed to be transparent to the auditor and opening up all of the reports of the records to the auditor. Why the audit report has not been concluded up to now is because not enough of the records and access to the bank accounts that the interim government operated have been given to the auditor. For example, how can an accountant indicate that or record that sums of money totaling about $140,000 were wire transfer to who? He does not give records. And for what purposes? No records either. How many of you will take this interim government seriously if that kind of report was presented before you? Both cabinet and the Restoration Council, after going through that initial report and discovering these lapses, decided that the report be sent back to the auditor for a proper auditing. That's why that report is still pending up to today. It is, however, hoped that the report shall be completed by end of May, barely a few days from now. I can promise you that once the report is out, you shall know the facts surrounding the audit. You shall know exactly who the fraudsters are. Ladies and gentlemen, but the preceding, ladies and gentlemen, is only the precursor to what is happening in Kondenge. The current pressure from SISIKU to rule at all costs, albeit from detention, had different steps in the making. First, he tried to force the interim government to endorse the APNC. Conveners of the APNC had planned to flood the conference with enough number of pro-SISIKU delegates. One of them would raise a motion of no confidence on Dr. Sako, and the rest would support it. They would then nominate and vote in place a SISIKU stooge, as we find today in his so-called vice president, and going by the plan, Sako would have been toppled. That plot failed woefully as the interim government stood its ground and, despite the pressure from SISIKU, refused to endorse the APNC. When the APNC failed, they prayed and hoped that the ASSC in Berlin fails too, so that they can revert to the masses and say to them to save and ask them to save the revolution by removing Sako. That didn't happen or work either. When they realized the ASSC in Berlin became a big success, They invented false accusations. They complained that SISIKU's image wasn't properly projected at the Berlin conference, that there were no posters on the wall heralding his image, that the rally at the Nigerian embassy in Berlin didn't carry SISIKU's image. Again, these all turned out to be their own fabrications. The biggest poster in the hall of the Berlin conference bore two images only, that of SISIKU and Dr. Sako. Something at the embassy, same thing at the embassy protest. Fellow Ambazonians, after failing to topple Dr. Sako using the long route of the APNC and then blackmail, the crux of the matter is out. SISIKU hasn't been trying to eject the AP because the AP has sinned. Instead, the sin is SISIKU's. SISIKU all along has been trying to invent a scenario from confinement where he and he alone, sitting in jail, dictate the terms of negotiations, if any, with the Republic of Cameroon, and equally reserve the power to pick and choose who represents us at such an opportunity. He will do many things, unchallenged, surrounded by yes men, sacked from this current cabinet, as we see him doing, by virtue of him appointing a fake restoration council and a fake cabinet from jail. Listen to this. This is what we now know about why SISIKU is acting the way he does. A week ago, SISIKU invited Barrister Insult John to his Kondenge room. He told the man we all know is his main leader or main lawyer that the uncompromising firebrander we have on ground zero, defending them, that going forward, he remains just one of their attorneys for the Naira 10 and not his lawyer. SISIKU justifying the action stated later that when it comes to, and I quote, personal matters, end of quote, referring to Ambazonia matters, that he, SISIKU, does not have to consult with a barrister or barrister himself. But guess who SISIKU is consulting for Ambazonia matters, which he claims are his personal issues? It is one Emmanuel Sim. Emmanuel Sim is Maurice Kamto's chief attorney. And it is important for the record to state that Mr. Sim isn't a recent hire for SISIKU, as some people think. Barrister Sim was appointed by the Cameroon Bar Association as one of the attorneys for the Naira 10. That means he has always been there. But SISIKU has only recently fallen very much in love with Barrister Sim. So this isn't the problem. But this is exactly what the problem is. Emmanuel Sim, or Barrister Sim, is shuttling between the French embassy in Yaoundé to Mvondo Ayono, who is intelligence chief at the presidency of the Republic of Cameroon, and then to SISIKU in Kondenge. Emmanuel Sim is SISIKU's guy, who is facilitating negotiations between the French, La République du Cameroun, represented by the intelligence chief at the presidency, Mr. Mvondo, and SISIKU. When you hear French Cameroon officials out there saying that dialogue is going on, ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what they are referring to. As good as it looked, ignore that letter yesterday from SISIKU to the United Nations. SISIKU is merely camouflaging. He is doing La République du Cameroon's dirty job of sabotage. SISIKU is aware that only as recently as last week, The interim government, after the United Nations Security Council hearings, sent a 32-page document to the United Nations thanking it and laying out our case. Yet, without consultations, he doubles down and sends out another letter to the United Nations as one President Ayok Tabe with same letterhead. So the acting president signs out a 32-page letter to the United Nations, and SISIKU comes from behind and sends another one. Which one is the United Nations going to consider? Isn't this cacophony and confusion of the highest order? Doesn't this sound in our ears like that sabotage by Capo Daniel, SISIKU's ambassador, calling the United Nations Decentralization Committee and asking that they don't listen to us? Is this the role that SISIKU is now going to be playing in this struggle? SISIKU is in Kondenge, promising the presidency in Yaoundé and the French that he can secure a federation from us, so that we can continue to live together in a one Cameroon. But to come across as genuine to Ambazonians, he says that French Cameroon should pull out its troops first from our territory, which is okay, and that all detainees should be released, which is also okay. But these conditions, this interim government has stated it again and again already. What SISIKU is doing is to want to come across as a genuine stakeholder by listing these conditions, ladies and gentlemen. Now SISIKU knows, and he has said it himself, that they will be released very, very soon. They have to be released very, very soon indeed, so that other detainees like Painfo and Galanfo, Wilfred Tassan, Barrister Elias Eyambe, and others who think that what SISIKU is doing is out of place can be displaced, so that SISIKU enjoys free space to meet regularly with his French Cameroon dialogue partners. So do not be surprised, ladies and gentlemen, that SISIKU and others are either released or separated, so that he can conduct his schemes freely with French Cameroon. But this is the more intriguing part, ladies and gentlemen. For SISIKU to be taken seriously by French Cameroon, he has to assure them that he has the leverage to call a ceasefire and have our restoration forces lay down their arms. He has to be seen of as having control over restoration forces. To accomplish this, SISIKU has agents on ground zero as I speak, campaigning and promising cash, money to commanders to switch allegiance from the interim government to him. SISIKU will receive millions from French Cameroon. He will use it to buy our ground commanders. But they will tell all of us that it is money raised by Ambazonians who support him, who support SISIKU and believe he is the best leader the revolution ever had. SISIKU actually told me in a conversation about a month ago that in 3 weeks, they were going to raise millions to help Ground Zero. But where is SISIKU going to raise the millions that he didn't raise when he toured North America and Europe? Is it now that he sits in jail that you will raise the millions? Open your eyes, fellow Ambazonians. This is the moment. This is the hour. We must all rise up and save the revolution, or forever forget about our free southern Cameroons. Every finger should be pointing to SISIKU and telling him to desist from any form of negotiations on behalf of 8 million of us who are still free. Every Ambazonian must now tell SISIKU his Kondenge so-called government has no place among us and no role to play in this revolution. SISIKU should be told he will never on his terms and on his own represent Ambazonia on any genuine dialogue table. SISIKU must know that any form of federation he discusses with French Cameroon will not be on behalf of Ambazonia. SISIKU's agents must be told to stay far, far away from ground zero commanders and any diplomatic offices where they go to set confusion. SISIKU should be made to know he is no longer the face of this struggle, nor the president of Ambazonia. He no longer deserves that honor. Yes, SISIKU has paid such a heavy price for this struggle. The abduction, the incarceration, the physical and mental torture, the solitary confinement, and the absence of family. But who amongst you out there can say you haven't paid your own price? Whether in the diaspora or on ground zero or ground one, we all have paid undue sacrifices too. SISIKU is in jail, that is true, but he still has his life. What about Baby Mata? What about Tom Sawyer? What about General Amigo? What about General Ivo? How about Mami Apia? And you can go on and you name the rest. SISIKU isn't the only one sacrificing for this war. Ground zero is day one. It is ground zero that lives in fear. Ground zero isn't sure of food the next day. Ground zero cannot do business as usual. Ground zero cannot farm as usual. Ground zero has no schools going on. Ground zero cannot travel freely anymore. Ground zero is harassed, kidnapped, and ransom taken. Ground zero sleeps in the bushes and others in refugee camps. Ground zero has lost towns and villages. Meanwhile, in the diaspora has continued to give and give and give. Some are taking on 2 or 3 jobs to fund the revolution. They go to bed at 3 a.m. and wake up at 5 a.m. thinking of the struggle. Ladies and gentlemen, no one of us, be it in jail or free, should want to have any special sense of entitlement over this struggle. You will get your entitlement with merit. Agbobala in Fontaine were never given any such entitlements for their sojourn in Kondenge. We cannot now do so. Not especially when greed, control, and power is all the reason behind it. Fellow Ambazonians, your interim government is stronger and speaking with one voice more than ever before. The interim government will not sit here and allow SISIKU to betray the trust of 8 million of us, plus those who have paid with their blood for this struggle. Coming out of an emergency constituent assembly last Monday, initiated by the country and regional coordinators and county leadership, it was overwhelmingly voted, 91 votes over 100, that SISIKU be impeached and his activities refer to every international organization involved in our case as usurpation. In another day or two, the Restoration Council shall thus come out with that statement. It formally strips SISIKU of the title of president or interim president. Dr. Samuel Komesako and Dr. Harrison Abongwa, going forward, at the publication of the Restoration Council statement, shall be addressed as President and Vice President respectively. Fellow Ambazonians, we must move on. We must move on and not allow these things to distract us. We must continue to believe in the cause and prosecute the revolution as if nothing has happened. This has only been one of those hurdles that we must overcome before we arrive the promised land, Boya. This interim government and the struggle have been through this route again and again, and we always conquered the odds. This is just another one. And like the previous ones, this too shall be conquered. We must never take lightly the idea that this revolution is God ordained. If indeed it were not so, everything would have been over by now. We could have run dry of money. La Republic would have decimated our restoration fighters. And maybe Ground Zero could have grown tired out of all the killings. But in spite of all these, we have seen and encountered our resolve has only strengthened. Let us continue to pray and look up to God, the author and the finisher of this revolution. Let us continue to believe in Him who has taken us thus far. Let us continue to stand like one man. Let us continue to chip in our contributions and not give up, even when the detractors want you to believe that your money is being embezzled. Let us continue also to draw inspiration from countries that have gone ahead of us. Countries like Eritrea, the Southern Sudan, and others. If they made it, we too, God being on our side, we will make it. Short live the struggle. Long live the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. And may God bless you all. Thanks for listening today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a message I brought for you today. In a day or two, the Restoration Council will be out with a statement that formally impeaches SISIKU. Again, thanks for listening. God bless you all.